Welcome to On the Beat, where we bring you a different Buffalo Bills beat reporter every week, exclusively on the Overreaction Sports Network.
Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into On the Beat, brought to you exclusively on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe, a show where we bring you a different exclusive interview with a different Bills beat reporter or journalist every single week to talk about the topics swirling around our beloved Buffalo Bills. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired. Flying solo tonight as Jerry and John are not going to be with me. Please do me a favor. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are tuned into this live broadcast on. Please hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. And if you were listening to this in post, please like as a podcast, please like and subscribe there as well. Also know we are on every social media platform. Just search Overreaction Buff. We also have a website, overreactionbuffalo.com, where we've got some very cool features to include the Bills on the Wire page, where you click that tab and it aggregates every single national sports media article that mentions the Buffalo Bills into that one page, so you don't have to go searching for it. But we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills and what's going on. We're going to talk a little bit about this last game, probably the next game, and some other hot topics. But today I'm excited to have a very special guest for the second time on the program, sports anchor for WHAM13 Rochester and 1/3 of the Buffalo Plus podcast. All three of these guys are pretty much friends of the show at this point. Everybody, let's welcome Mike Catalana. Mike, how are you? And more importantly, is your Christmas shopping done yet?
Yes, Christmas shopping is done. Well, hey, listen, I got to it early. It was funny, Joe. I was thinking about it, is like, let me get to it before trips to LA and Detroit, because we had a ton going on. And I got it done. I probably got a couple little tiny things to do, but the main stuff is done. That is for wife. That is for kids. That is now for grandbabies. I got a couple of them. So all that stuff is done.
Mine is not done.
Got to get to work.
Like literally today, I was like, I got to get out and finish my Christmas shopping. Why don't I do it today? And it didn't happen. I work from home, so I work remotely. So I had the opportunity to just go. Like even my boss would say, no. If you got Christmas shopping, go do it. I know that you work at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night sometimes. So if you got Christmas shopping, go do it. Yeah, just it sneaks up. And then every year, inevitably, what is it? Christmas Eve, I'm at Walmart getting stocking stuff for things and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's got to stop at some point in time. Super good to have you on the show. We probably need to start with one of the most important things for this football team right now, which is injury updates.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of lead us into what you heard from Coach, or kind of what you've heard just around the beat?
I think it's one of those things that I think we're going to see a similar pattern over these next few weeks with some of the players. And I'm not saying that they're sitting players out and resting them, because there's still plenty to play for.
Right.
But I think they're going to be smart about this. I'm thinking there's nothing at the moment that is long range for any of the players that they're considered, that are out. Like, look at what team they put on the field Sunday. 3/4 of that part of the secondary not in there. And then they lose guys during practice. Now, we will see when Sean has his news conference tomorrow and they start talking about it. But it's going to be a walkthrough on Wednesday. I mean, last week, it's a walkthrough Wednesday, no practice Thursday. You're sort of guessing on Friday, and then you get there Sunday, and it's like, okay, neither safety and Rasul are all out. So I guess we won't know, but I'm feeling cautiously optimistic for the Bills on the way they look, I would say, injury-wise right now.
Very good. Anything on Dorian Williams and Matt Milano's groin specifically?
No. It's when you're sitting there. I was talking to Terrell Bernard after the game, and we're sitting there about players on the field, and it's like sometimes he had to be like looking around going, where is everybody? Right? Because next thing they are super shorthanded at linebacker. Those are the kind of things, this is why I'm saying, is coming into a game like Sunday where you have to be both smart, you're out there trying to win, but I don't think they mess around, especially anything, soft tissue issues, hamstrings, those kind of things. So again, we will see. I will tell you that I was going to say, like, health-wise, when they're both ready to go, I'm looking forward to seeing maybe a little more Dorian Williams than we've seen the past couple of weeks, because I think he brings that element to the defense. He's going to need his speed. He's going to need to be healthy. But I think they need to get that guy on the field as much as possible.
Yeah, that's been a topic of conversation with John and Jerry both.
Mhm.
Matt Milano's first week back in that weather game, he played okay, and then the snow game, and then the game after that, the Rams game, both John and Jerry felt he was a step behind at times, and it was like, why would you not just throw Dorian out there occasionally, maybe give him a spell? But yeah, to your point, it's going to be important. Also, the Buffalo Bills today made some roster moves. They activated Talon Grable off of IR, and they released Casey Toohill, which
Yeah.
I was surprised about.
I guess I was, but you're looking, and I think Javon Solomon's going to get more snaps. He got a few. I think it was 8 total, maybe 5 in pass rush situations. I think they're thinking that way. I was a little bit surprised. Toohill does not have numbers, right? If you look at the amount of pressures he's had and whatever it is, it does seem like he's flashed a few times.
Yep.
But quite honestly, sometimes with a backup player gets limited snaps, they're looking for certain things if they weren't seeing it. Now, we say all this, they're trying to map out the practice squad. There's nothing saying that he doesn't come back. I will say a guy who's had the amount of snaps he's had in the league is going to be out there on the open market. You know the way teams are now, looking constantly for players. Would not be surprised if Toohill gets picked up, but that would be my guess, is just more snaps for Javon Solomon going forward.
Yeah, plug and play guys are kind of the answer this time of year. Like even if they're not up to speed on the playbook, like just can you play some snaps?
Yeah.
Yes, at a high level,
especially at D line, right? There are times. Yes, it's scheme. They got to be ready, but at times it's like, go get him, go chase him down, and he has done that in his career.
Yeah, it's funny because, and I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but the Bills I don't want to say that they're set at defensive line, but they've got a decent number of guys that they can rotate, and they've always lived in that way of having a bunch of guys. I felt like the Bills suffered a little bit with Jordan Phillips not in the lineup against the Rams. I felt like there was an energy, an urgency that was missing that he kind of brings to that defensive line, and then he played obviously with again this past weekend against the Lions. It was just odd to me that you bring back Grable and you drop a defensive lineman. It was just peculiar. And then obviously the name was, it's not a huge name, but it's a name we've heard this year.
I do think they really like Grable, and I think they think a lot of him. Now the question is, it's so different on the O-line, right? The O-line guys play, as your guys know, guys who played O-line in this league. The O-line plays, right? It's those 5 that's what they want. And in the Bills' case, number 70 is eligible on the play, right? So they're going to have the 6th. The D line, at any moment, somebody could be out there. So I think they might like him on the roster, getting back on the regular roster in case he's needed.
Yeah. Who is it? I can't see the name here. LFB asks, what about Micah Hyde? So I had some just back in my head rolling around, like, are we going to see Micah Hyde against the Lions? But, and then, going forward too, who knows, right?
Yeah. Well, we had that discussion amongst ourselves on Buffalo Plus, and we saw Mike. I saw him on the field in LA, just talking to him a little bit before the game, and then you're looking at the Lions game, and you're seeing 2 safeties out, and you're looking around, going, "Hey, Micah, let's get up to speed here,
exactly,
because it's Micah Hyde, right?" And they bring him back, and you figure there was going to be a ramp up for Micah. Now that doesn't mean it won't happen,
right?
Where they elevate him. And then once you get to the playoffs, I think it's unlimited elevations. Like they can just bring him up. So during the playoffs, obviously there's only a few games. So you would think, right, if you're in those circumstances, even if it's just to be a backup in that case,
right,
that it wouldn't be a bad idea to have Mike. He is thinner. He's not a huge person for an NFL player to begin with.
Right.
Does look like he's lost a little weight-wise, and maybe he's trying to get himself back into that football shape and get ready. For all we know, he gets elevated this weekend. They get him on the field, maybe against it. But it was funny. I was thinking about it. It's like, imagine not playing for the whole year and starting out on that track against that Lions team as your first game. So Mike was like, hey, you know what? Why don't we hold off until, I'm kidding. He would play if needed be, but we'll see if that happens.
You feel like he's got to get some game reps between the next 3 games, especially with the opponents that they're playing. So talk about Mike Catalana from the Buffalo Plus podcast on WHAM13 out of Rochester. Super good to have him. Let's transition now to it's a hot topic. It's been an annoying topic in the past because I feel like our quarterback has been overlooked by a guy who had lesser numbers, and now it's even more annoying that our guy is leading. But who is the best player in the NFL right now, Mike, and why is it Josh Allen?
Yeah, it's Josh Allen. and you know what's funny is I like Lamar. I like him. I like him as a player. I think he's been great for the league. His numbers last year did not warrant MVP, but his team had the best record. He's Lamar. I mean, Josh's total touchdowns. It's funny. I was looking it over last year. His total touchdowns last year were 44. Yeah. 44 to 29 in touchdowns. Right. And he had more yards by like 700 yards passing. And the rushing was relatively close, though Lamar had more by a few hundred. But Lamar's team was 13-3. And you know the way the Bills were last year. Like, it was a fight to even stay alive for the playoffs. And it didn't officially make it to the last weekend. And I don't think anybody's going to win MVP if their team doesn't make the playoffs.
Right.
It's different this year. There are numbers. Joe Burrow puts up great numbers. Yeah. Team's no good. He's throwing all the time. It's different. Yep. Lamar's really good. Lamar's the top 3 guy for the MVP, I would say, right?
Yep.
Not this year. And I think Saquon Barkley's been amazing. And in other years, he might be the guy. If you're voting for the MVP, it is Josh Allen.
Right.
Not just the idea of his numbers, which are getting better and better and better, right? Because Joe, I mean, up to this stretch, his numbers were good, not tremendous.
Right.
And this last month of football has just been comically good. And it's not just the numbers, it's the way he's played with virtually no negative plays, with a vision on the field and the ability to beat you in so many ways. He's to me, the epitome of the most valuable player. Yeah. It's warranted him being close. I would need an argument from somebody else to tell me how you could vote for another player. I'd make Saquon my offensive player of the year, and I'd make Josh Allen my MVP.
Are you we know because he's admitted it, Emmanuel Acho has a vote, which I don't like the fact that he has a vote because he is very much a flavor of the moment kind of guy. Have you ever talked to anybody that has those votes and like what are they looking at and what are they looking for? Because we've all seen it. Josh Allen crushed his numbers in his first MVP season. I don't remember back then what it was, and then last year, and now Josh's numbers are a little bit pale in comparison to Lamar's. But Josh is the forerunner. Have you talked to anybody? Like, what are you looking for?
I think most voters, I would say, want to see it. It's going to go to a player on a good team, right? I mean, that's why Burrow's not really even considered. And the guys that I have talked to that vote, I do think this is the time of the year. I know it sounds funny, because now we have talk shows where people are talking about MVP in September. He's the leader in MVP. There is no MVP in September.
Right.
But I think you look at it and say, okay, don't get caught up in the whole idea of most valuable in a total sense, because then you might be able to make an argument. You'd say, well, then you got to take Lamar out because he's got Derrick Henry in the backfield, right? But I don't think that's fair. I mean, Lamar could win it. I think most of them look at it and say, great numbers, winning team, and does those things. I mean, there's no question in my mind that is Josh Allen this year. And this is not from a position of it's got to be a Buffalo Bill. I just think he's been that guy. And I think he's shown every one of those traits. And also, there is a narrative to the vote for the MVP. And it's a little bit of like, it could be this year. Hey, it's Saquon Barkley because hasn't been a running back since 2009. Right. He's having a borderline historic year, depending on how it finishes. And then you look at other players and say, well, he's been good. I mean, look, the Chiefs have all these wins. This does not fit for Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't have the numbers. They're just winning a ton of games. I think Josh has all of that this year. I think he has the narrative that he's been close, that he's put up huge numbers. He's had big moments. Oh, and by the way, he's on a team, leading a team that most of the people around the league thought was taking a step back.
Yep.
And while we see and appreciate the weapons that he has and the way he uses them, who's the only one that has a legitimate shot to be, well, certainly even Pro Bowl, is likely James Cook, right?
Yeah.
I can't imagine none of the receivers are going to be Pro Bowl. Love Shakir. He's not going to make the Pro Bowl or all pro. And neither tight end, like nobody. Maybe on the O-line, he'll get some help. So that's a pretty good narrative to win MVP.
For sure. There was a graphic the Bills put out today that had like Cole Bishop on it and some other folks. And it's like, timeout.
Yes.
Cole Bishop has barely played football this year. But to that point, just about Josh Allen and the way that he's been playing on the Aftermath show this past Monday and over the several weeks and actually through the season, we have been talking about here just that Josh Allen, it felt like early in the season, I know that they started out 3-0, then they lost the 2, and it just felt like he was like trying to find his fit, trying to get comfortable in exactly what Joe Brady was trying to get him to do inside of this offense, but he has snapped into it amazingly since that Chiefs game where he's taking all the easy throws. He looks calm. They don't even feel pressed in the run game. Whereas before, it seemed like in years past, it was like, okay, time to run the ball, and all of a sudden, everybody kind of panicked a little bit. Are we going to be able to run the ball? And it just seems like everything's kind of coming easy to Josh, the decisions, the commander that he is, which obviously speaks to that MVP part. But the question that I have and what I talked about on Monday is, are we seeing or beginning to see Josh Allen's ceiling? Is he fully entered his prime? Because I claimed it on Monday. Like Josh Allen's in his prime. Like he's arrived, 28 years old, engaged to Haley Steinfeld. Like no more trouble. He's arrived. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when I watch him now, I see a guy that has confidence and control, and he understands what Joe wants, and it has freed him up. It's funny he used that term after they had clinched the division, which feels like 6 months ago. But it has freed him up to play and pick his spots when he's going to be spectacular, Josh. Yeah. But I think it's because he knows what they want. He's got a very good offensive line around him. His protection's been great, but his sense in the pocket has been fantastic.
Yeah.
When I watch him, I think to myself, man, young Josh, what did we used to say? Gets that sugar high.
Yep.
The game speeds up. He's looking to make a play. Like, I'm standing down there on the field at the end of the Houston playoff game, and I'm thinking, what is this man doing? Right? Because everything sped up for him. Right. I watch him now, and he has a poise and a control on the field that we have really rarely seen from Josh. I mean, not in moments. I don't mean he's crazy all the time. It's like the play he made when he just threw the ball to Keon.
Yeah.
And you watch him calmly go to his right. He's very confident. If he needs to, he's going to take off. If not, he's going to chuck it out of bounds and whatever it is. Most of the time, he's not. He's going to make a play. This is not wildly running out of bounds, throwing the ball. This is pointing down the field. He had guys open, saw Keon, basically said, go get it, and then threw a perfect ball to him with poise and calmness. He's just in control.
Yeah.
Add that to his physical skills. And again, I've been covering this league a long time. When I started covering the team, they were playing. We had Jim Kelly in Buffalo, and you're playing against Marino and Montana, and then Steve Young and all these guys, right? There has never been. John Elway was that guy when he was in the league. Big, strong, could move, all those things. John Elway is not the athlete Josh Allen is. He has the physical skills unlike any other quarterback we've ever seen. And now add in this calm and understanding defenses, picking his spots, and then having the ability to put it on players because he's been incredibly accurate with his throws this year too. So it's a combination that if this is his prime, look out to everybody else because there's no one playing the position better than him right now.
And if it's not his prime, look out because how much better can it get? You talked about the Keon Coleman throw, and I'm actually, my mind goes back to the Ty Johnson throw where he's a similar situation. Only that time, when he got to the boundary, he stepped back into the field of play, which I don't know that we've ever seen him do that before. Joe Brady has them playing just they're of the same mind right now. They're reading off the same script, which is great. Which interesting question. I don't think I like the answer already, but is Joe Brady going to be here next year?
I think so.
I want him to be.
And the reason I think so is while Joe's done a great job, Joe has a personality that I could see be elevated to the head coaching job. I think one thing has changed in this league a little bit. If you look around the league right now, and I'm not saying Joe can't be a head coach because there are excellent coordinators as head coaches. The role of CEO, head coach, is very prominent now, especially in the winning teams. And I say that knowing that Sean McDermott is not calling plays, but he's obviously very involved in what this team does. Same thing for Harbaugh or whatever. I think Andy Reid is the only, quote, play caller that has a division leading team. I could be wrong about that now. Now, that doesn't mean Joe can't do it. It means we went through that stretch where, it was like, who's the next play caller with the half beard who all looks like they've met McVay before, who's going to get the next gig, right? Because that's what it was. I don't see the league necessarily going down. That's what makes a guy, it's funny, like a Mike Vrabel coming back, which I think is going to happen. Because Vrabel's got that vibe too, more of a, he's been in defense and whatever, but CEO, head coach.
Yeah.
I think Joe could get there. I just don't know if it'd be next year, which, you see what happens in Detroit this year where they keep the coordinator and they keep it rolling.
Ben Johnson.
So I'm going to say I think he'll be back. But let's see how the rest of the season goes, and let's see what happens in the playoffs.
It's funny because it feels very much like the Ben Johnsons and the Joe Bradys of the world made it so people weren't overly interested in the Bill Belichick that was out there kind of who called the Jets after he slammed them on the Manning cast. Oh, that was interestingly enough. A couple more minutes here with Mike Catalana from WHAM13 Rochester and the Buffalo Plus podcast. I said on my show on Monday on the Aftermath show that the Bills are pretty much at the point with the way that Josh Allen is playing. If he can, and obviously there'll be hiccups and there'll be speed bumps, and somebody somewhere is going to make it somewhat a little bit difficult. But if we get this version of Josh Allen, all the defense needs to do is make 2 or 3 stops a game. And, if they're going to put 35 or 42 points on the board, regardless of that, the defense has given up 87 points in the last 2 weeks. What do the Bills need to do defensively, in your opinion? You've seen this team for a long time, a lot of years. You've been around a lot of D coordinators and a lot of players. What do they need to do to just slow offenses down a little bit?
I think they can still be a lot better. I thought that Rams game was a bit of an aberration because, they usually are pretty strong in pass defense, right? We've given up on the run and it got them behind. That game was a series of things, I thought, where they were not good against the run. They got the Rams in pretty good spots. And then in that game, they were lethal offensively. Even when the coverage was good, it was just as if they were just picking them apart. Then you fast forward to this Detroit game where I thought at the beginning of the game, I thought the defense really set a tone. They were great against the run, got pressure. They sent Benford on the one play, gets a sack. Next thing you know, boom, it's 14-0. They took the Lions out of their script for the game. And then the game became a track meet. And talking to the players afterward, I was talking to Taron Johnson about feeling pretty good giving up 42 points. And he was like, because the game was all 2-minute drill constantly. And the Bills kept scoring so fast that it was like, okay, now slow the Lions down and add in all the injuries. We always talk about this. Reasons, not excuses. I thought the injuries were reasons that it just couldn't get off the field against the Lions while the offense just kept putting up points. They were out there. It was crazy, the amount of offensive possessions in that game just going back and forth. I think they can be a lot better. I think getting healthy in the secondary will be a big deal. I have to say, it's funny because I saw individual players like we saw Ed Oliver play the game of the year, certainly. I think all this is out there for them. I think Smoot can really help them. I don't think they're going to be giving up 35 and 40 during the rest of the year, but they've got to be better. And that's when I said that to you. I like Dorian Williams on the field. I love his athleticism, even in some sense of a pass rush too, because they've used him sometimes in those spots to get to quarterbacks and stay healthy, get the safeties healthy. Again, maybe it's time for Micah Hyde to be one of those backups that gets some time. But I do love the corners, and even Kaiir Elam, who's played 79 snaps, played them all last week. Give him credit. for a guy who's had limited time out there, that's a lot of snaps to be taken on the field. And they still have Jamarcus Ingram there too. So I'm cautiously optimistic that McDermott and Babbage will get the defense together. I don't expect them to be elite, but they can be a lot better than they've shown the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple more minutes with you. Appreciate your time tonight. Transitioning over to the Patriots game this weekend. It's funny. You come off the Chiefs, Rams, Lions, and it feels like you just went through the playoffs, right? And then won the Super Bowl this past weekend. And I know that it wasn't our Super Bowl. And then it's like, oh, we're back to preseason against the Patriots. And I know the Patriots beat us in Buffalo with Mac Jones last year, but that's a team. The Jets are a dumpster fire, and then the Patriots are just kind of reeling. There was the NFL put out the thing that or CBS, one of them did, that the game had been moved to the 4:00 window, and the Patriots fans got in there, and they're just like, great, now the world can watch us get our butts kicked. Like, it's just funny. But what are you expecting from this? I mean, is there much to expect? What Drake May? I'm interested in seeing Drake May, and I know you guys are friends with Mike Giardi. So what are you hearing from Mike, and like what's going on in New England?
Mike is on the Buffalo Plus podcast. Dan did an interview with him. Nice. That comes out on Wednesday morning. If you're watching this tomorrow morning, Mike is harsh on the Patriots, and Mike's a guy Bills fans know. He covered the Bills a lot for the NFL Network, knows them. I would say it's bad right now in Foxborough. It's just they don't seem to have a plan with the entire roster. But honestly, there are worse places to be than they are right now. I think they got it wrong on the head coach. I don't know if he survives. The Patriots have this feeling of we know better than everybody.
Yes.
So they didn't even interview a ton of people outside the building. I mean, come on, fellas. You had Belichick for 100 years. Find out what other people are doing. Talk to Bills coaches. Talk to Chiefs coaches. Find out what's going on. Instead, they stay in-house, and I don't think it's great. But I think May can play. I'm not saying, he's been, maybe Josh Allen and has some similar traits. He's shown something this year. So if you get the quarterback right and can just fix the other 52 on the roster, maybe you're better off. But I just think it's a pretty bad team. They're playing, I wouldn't even say necessarily they're playing hard, I guess. They're just not very good.
Right.
And the schemes are bad. The vibe is bad, I think, a little bit. But I am interested in seeing the quarterback play. I would say for him to walk into Buffalo and beat the Bills, or even the last game of the year and knock them off, which is always a concern. It's that last game you just would have played them. Yeah. I think is going to be tough. But I am interested in seeing the quarterback. Isn't it funny? We almost totally forget about the Patriots all year long, right? Not playing them until December, and we knew they were going to be bad. And now here it's 2 of the last 3 games that you're going to see this team. But I don't think they're very good, but they might have found their quarterback.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Drake May play. And people in the comments are like, we thought Mac Jones was good his first year too. And that's not necessarily incorrect. Like that, there was a feeling early on that Mac Jones was going to be okay. But that's usually how it goes with all rookie quarterbacks. But before we get you out of here with one last question, why don't you tell Mike, everybody where they can find your stuff, where they can find your content, find you on Twitter, all that good stuff.
Yeah, we're on Twitter. We try anybody's social media. For me, it's usually just Mike Catalana, Catalana, on Twitter. Wherever else you go, we are on the YouTube channel, as you've been nice enough to mention, on Buffalo Plus. We have content there all the time. Yeah, we do our pod live on Thursday nights. I got Dan and Jenna. They keep me hopping. Those kids, they keep me moving forward. So that's really where you can find me. You can find Dan and Jenna there too. Constant. No one loves content more than our Dan Fates, so he's always out there on social too. So you can find him.
I'm 51, so the energy that they have escapes me at times for sure. They definitely.
Yeah. Well, I was covering the team before they were born, so they remind me of that multiple times. So I always say my first game covering the team was Thurman's first game, 1988. So so that was it was fun covering those guys, man. And I know Joe and Jerry and John talk about this, but man, if social media was out when those guys were running around, who knows what would have happened in Orchard Park? But
the days I hear about are the Greg Williams, Tom Donahoe, when that transition was made. Neither one of them even like to speak about it. It's super. And I know that it was a huge right turn from Club Marv and Wade, who were players, coaches, and then Greg came in here with his arrogance. I still remember to this day Greg Williams at his press conference when he said that we'll have the best defense ever, like he said ever twice, and I was just like, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah.
But,
you know what it was real quick, I would say, is when they hired him, Donahoe picked him out. He wasn't the main guy because they had been to the Super Bowl the year before. And I always felt like Greg was out to try to prove something right away.
Yep.
Instead of just being a coach. Because he was, at the time, had been a pretty effective defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But man, that was just the beginning. There was just so much nonsense going on in Orchard Park. I always joke, I had all those good years. Then we took off for 2 decades, and now you've been paid back by Josh Allen in this franchise right now.
Enjoy it, Bills Mafia. One last question for you.
Yeah.
So obviously the Bills are getting into a short little run. We've talked about it, Patriots, Jets, Patriots. And there is potentially something to play for there with Mahomes, who now has he's dealing with a little bit of a slight high ankle injury. And who knows if they'll play him. They don't need to play him. They're in the playoffs. It's going to come down to the 1 seed. So it's all the battle of the 1 seed, which is what this last question is. How important in your mind is it for the Bills to get the 1 seed?
I would say if you have a shot, you really want it. You're home, you get that. You automatically advance, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been in that spot. That is the one thing. You get that game, and then you're home for 1. And you avoid a lot of other stuff, right? You probably are avoiding either the Steelers or the Ravens in the next game. All those things that happen.
Or the Chiefs.
Yes, yes. Right, because 2 and 3 are going to play each other, right? It's just the way it kind of works out.
Right.
Yeah, if you have a legitimate shot. I've been referring to Mahomes as Paul Pierce in the wheelchair when he's injured, because every time Mahomes is hurt, it looks like he's done. And then now I saw he was at practice and maybe considering him playing this week. He is tough. He's a great player and he is tough. He will come back. But even with Mahomes, this is a tough stretch for them. So you know what's going to happen, though, too. If they lose either one of these games over the next 10 days, whatever it is, and the Bills win, it's going to come down to that last week when they're in Denver. So that's the thing. If the Bills win, they keep the pressure on, and then you get the week off, and then you're at home. If you can do it, you got to keep winning. And look, they're favored, big favorites in these 2 games. They'll be substantial favorites against the Jets. Go win your games and see what happens.
Yeah, they played Sunday, they play Saturday, right? And then they play on 4 days later. It's crazy. Like, the schedule makers did not do them any favors. We have a super
and
late.
it got and the Steelers in there 4 days, a physical team. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, super late super chat from Carl Tomlin. He says Josh put up 42 on the Rams, 48 on the Lions. Is he going to put up 50 on the Patriots? I wouldn't. I'd probably not.
No, hey, you really do want to. It's too hard to say this in the NFL, but take care of business.
Yeah.
Be smart, play smart, and go ahead and where you don't feel like you need to do that over the next 3 weeks. So we'll see how it goes. But 17's pretty special. I'm saying with you, he's MVP. Give it to him now.
Give it to him, yeah. Mike, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight.
Absolutely.
With our listeners. Make sure everybody you tune into Buffalo Plus tomorrow. It drops, and Giardi's one of my favorite folks. Like, I was, when the network let him go, I was not, whatever. However, he ended up back in New England. I was a little bit disappointed. I think he went out with one of the big swaths, right, of people. So
yes, one of those NFL Network ones. He covered the Super Bowl, and then that happened. But he's a guy who's honest about the teams he covers, and he gives some good insight on the Patriots.
Well, we're big fans of you guys over here at Overreaction, so thank you so much for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into On the Beat on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. Again, on the way out, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Make sure you jump over to Mike, follow him, subscribe to the Buffalo Plus podcast on YouTube, and dig all their content. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for Mike, we appreciate you guys. We love you. Go Bills.